So the more we try to fight it, the stronger the resistance gets.
Mm.
Yeah. What I also say to people is resistance will fight with your efforts until the day you die.
Welcome to Positive Vibes. I'm Nicki Dennis. This is a space for clarity where we shift from stuck to empowered, one real conversation at a time. And today's guest is about to give us the language and the tools for, for something so many of us experience, but we can't quite explain. Kam Knight is an international speaker and the author of 12 best-selling books on memory, focus, productivity, and mental performance. He's travelled to over 100 countries, learning from shamans, healers, spiritual teachers, and taught leaders all around the world. But it was one quiet, persistent question that changed everything for him. Why is it that even when I know what to do and I want to do it, I still don't? That question led to the discovery he now calls internal resistance, a powerful concept that explains why so many of us stay stuck even when we're ready to grow. Once you understand it, everything begins to shift from your mindset to your motivation. Today, Cam's going to help us understand what internal resistance really looks like and how to move through it with grace, clarity, and yes, positive vibes. Cam, I'm excited to dive into it with you here today. So, welcome.
Thank you very much, Nikki. I'm really happy to be here.
So, Cam, as I've mentioned, you traveled over 100 countries and
Yeah.
studied with everyone from spiritual leaders to top performers. What were you seeking through those years?
So, as far back as I can remember, I've been a fairly driven individual. It's kind of hard not to be living in a culture and society now where there is so much personal development content and everyone telling you to do more and be your best self
Mm,
and reach for the stars. And as a result, I've always wanted to do more and have more and be more in life. And although I've had my fair share of success, I always felt like I either missed the mark or fell short, or
mhm,
the success was much more difficult than it needed to be. And I always wondered why. Like you said, why is it if I want to do something, I know what to do, I know how to do it, I have the motivation and desire to do it, but for one reason or another, I can't do it.
mm,
And at the time, there were really no clear answers. The best answers I came across was that you needed positive beliefs, or you needed motivation, discipline. And I think those are all part of the equation, but I always felt like there was more to it.
mhm,
And the more books I read, coaching I did, seminars I attended, and the people I work with, the more I began to realize that, hey, wait a minute, there's a part of our brain built to hold us back. There's a part of our mind designed to keep us from growing.
mm,
And I call this part resistance. It's a brick wall that we hit anytime that we want to do something, but we can't, no matter how much we want to do it. So, to answer your question, I was really looking for the answer of why is it that I can't do something no matter how much I want to do it? And it comes
mm,
down to this concept I call resistance.
mm. So you've mentioned about your book writing and you've written
Yeah.
12 bestseller books and you've said that the internal resistance was the idea that pulled it all together that's what led to the discovery.
Yeah. And so it really helps to understand that the part of the brain that creates wants
Mm,
and desires, it actually works separately and independent of the part that allows you to act on that desire.
mm,
This is really important. So I'm going to repeat it. The part of the brain that creates desires works separate from the part that allows you to act on the desire. So we have one part of the brain that creates wants, and it's creating endless wants, one after another. In fact, it doesn't check to see if you have the time, energy, or resources to achieve it. It simply creates wants. But we have another part of the brain that actually checks to see, it's the one that gives us a green light to act. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the thing that checks to see if we have the energy and time to do it. And so it's really important to understand is that our own brain can create a desire for something and at the same time keep us from going after it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's more is that both can get in our way.
Mm.
Our own wants can be a hindrance to achieving them, and our resistance can also get in the way. And the way resistance works is anytime we do have a desire, that desire gets filtered through a host of criteria. And if something doesn't check off, the brain will say, "Oh no, you can't do it." So it
Mm.
helps to kind of think about standing before a panel of judges or board of directors. Every decision or want that we have must go through them. If even one of the members is against the idea, it won't pass. So what I tell people is that it doesn't matter how much motivation you have, if this part that allows you to take action doesn't, you can't do it. And there's many reasons why it wouldn't. And it really, it's like a checklist of items.
Mm. It's like a real tug of war that you're having internally there with your brain.
It's
Yeah.
it's totally a tug of war. You have a
Yeah.
thing that gives you the wants and a part that keeps you from acting on it, which is why at a certain point in my journey, I was like, whoever created humanity, whether it was God or aliens or evolution, must have been really sick and twisted because how could they allow us to like create a want and then keep us from going after it? But
Mm.
it makes sense when you understand it from the perspective of the part of the brain that creates wants. It doesn't look at if we can achieve it, it's just creating wants one after another. But we
Yeah.
have another part that actually sees, checks to see if it's worth going after, if it's safe to go after, and all that.
Yeah. So you've done lots of research in this space. Can you paint a picture of what your life looked like before this concept clicked with you, and what did it change in your life?
Yeah, so what my life looked like was I had a lot of desires. I wanted to do a lot
Mm.
of things, but I couldn't. I was stuck. I would start something and then wouldn't finish it. If I was able to get myself to have enough willpower to stick with it, I would sabotage myself right before I would get to the end. Or if I did manage to get to the end, I wouldn't do the necessary things to keep that success and I would fall right off. And I think this is where a lot of yo-yo dieting and behaviors come from is because once we achieve the success, we don't we're not able to do the things that got us there, so we can't keep it.
Mm.
So it's actually a lot of frustration. It was a lot of pain of seeing others succeeding and me not being able to, or me having a certain amount of success, but not the level that I should, given the amount of effort and time and energy I was putting into it. So it was just a lot of struggle.
Mm. So you talked earlier about the two sides of the brain and resistance, but what
Yeah,
exactly is internal resistance?
yeah. So it's interesting because, as I mentioned, the part of the brain that creates that resistant, it's more or less just checking to see if the decision or desire that we have is worth going after, safe to go after, or fulfilling to get after. And what it does is it filters through all sorts of criteria. And some of the more commonly known criteria include beliefs. It checks to see if our beliefs are in line with activity, our habits, to see if we have the habits to do the activity and how hard would it be. And then also comfort zones. If it's
Mm.
gonna get us out of our comfort zone, and if it's too much, then it'll prevent action. But it goes even deeper than that. It'll look at our self image to see if our self image is in line with what we're trying to do.
Mm.
But more importantly, if it will confront or damage our self image, meaning if we try to do something and the brain thinks it will be too damaging, if things don't go well for our
Mhm.
self image, it'll prevent action. But it goes even deeper than that. A lot of times resistance comes up not because of the task or activity that we're doing, but what finishing or completing a task or activity would lead to or bring.
Mm-hmm.
I see this pattern a lot with authors, where a lot of people want to write a book, tell their story, or get their message out into the world. And with self publishing becoming easy, I can give people some simple tips and tricks to quickly write and publish a book. Many will start, but very few will finish. Why?
Mm,
Because finishing will mean facing something bigger they're avoiding. Because once you finish your book, you have to market it
mm,
and put yourself out there, and that means receiving feedback and criticism. And some people are not at a place to receive feedback or criticism,
mm,
so it's much easier to procrastinate on finishing the book now and not have to deal with the feedback and criticism later. So
mm,
that's another criteria that the brain evaluates.
mm,
Another thing that's actually pretty fascinating has to do with core needs and core pains. You see, as humans, we have a lot of needs, such as the need for love, affection, attention, and approval. And some of these needs are deeply ingrained into us, like the need for a mother's love or a father's guidance. They're so deeply ingrained that when we don't receive it, it creates pain. And if the brain learns while we're growing up that these needs can't be met or it's too dangerous to be met, it feels it has no other choice but to distract us from the pain. And one of the ways to distract us is by making our lives difficult, where we can't finish anything we start or complete things that we want. Because as long as we're living in a space of trying to make ends meet, the brain can distract us from these core pains. So
mm-hmm,
that's actually a very profound reason why someone might have resistance, is because they have this strong need that the brain feels like it can't be met. And instead of sitting in that pain, it'll distract us with sabotaging behavior. So there's all this internal stuff that's going on that's actually deciding whether or not we should be able to do something, how well we do it, and if we can, move forward with the decisions and the desires that we have.
mm. So there's multiple, what you're saying there, there's multiple
Criterias.
criterias why we don't act, even though we're fully motivated. So that's
Yeah,
interesting insight there. It's just trying to understand what is driving the why we're not acting.
yeah,
So, could just on that, continuing on that, can you explain what are some everyday ways people experience internal resistance without even realizing they're doing it?
yeah. So what's fascinating is that when resistance stops us from doing something, it doesn't tell us that it's stopping us or give us a reason. For example, if self image is a culprit, our resistance isn't going to say, Nikki, this thing that you're trying to do, it goes against our self image. So we're just going to sit here and do nothing.
Mm,
Excuse me. Or, Nikki, that desire that you have, well, our habits are not in line with it. So we're just going to step back and pretend like, you know, the desire is not there.
mm,
That's not what happens. Resistance manifests other ways. In fact, resistance shows up in very sneaky and manipulative ways where our brain has all sorts of like avoidance behaviors to keep us from doing the thing. And what's really interesting is that a lot of these tricks, which I call the tricks of resistance, there you wouldn't think of them as tricks, which is why they work so well and why we so easily fall for them. One of the tricks is that our brain will have us put off the task or activity or goal. So anytime you hear yourself say, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next month," and when we say it, we think we're the ones thinking it. We really, because the voice is in our head, we assume we're the ones that are saying, "Oh yeah, we'll get it tomorrow." But it's really the voice of resistance. It'll
mm,
tell us, "Yeah, we'll start it tomorrow," and then when tomorrow comes, we'll say, "Oh, I've got this thing going and I don't have time for it. So after the weekend will be great." and then we put it off.
mm,
And we keep putting it off until another trick comes up, which is that we forget. We forget that we had this goal or desire or intention. So that's another trick of the mind. Other tricks include that we'll criticize it. We'll say things like, oh, I'm too good for it. I don't need to do that. Or people who do that are so and so. And what's really important about criticism is that anytime you're criticizing, it means that you want the thing. I
mm,
know it sounds counterintuitive. It's like, well, if I'm criticizing it, it must mean that I don't like it or don't want to do it. The reality is, you actually like it and want to do it. It's just that the brain is putting up a barrier. And so, anytime a person catches on some criticism, they can
mm,
say, like, oh, wait, actually, I do want to do the thing, but there's some resistance coming up that's preventing me from doing it.
mm,
And I've just given three tricks, but there's like so many tricks. Us getting sick can be a trick of resistance
mm.
because when we're sick, we really have no energy and
Yeah.
motivation. It like really depletes us. And it's a perfect way that the brain stops us uh, from our forward momentum. And usually some of the more severe tricks like getting sick usually come up when we're actually making good progress and we're actually getting to the finish line. And it's resistance, last ditch effort to really hold us back.
Mm,
Other things can include accidents. A lot of times people who are doing well,
yeah.
making good progress, will all of a sudden get into like a car accident or some other accident. And that really puts a damper on their efforts and progress. And again, it's a perfect way that the mind slows our progress.
Mm,
I've gotten to the point where I realized that anything that it's keeping me from doing what I want is somehow is a manifestation of a trick my brain is playing.
mm,
That's how manipulative and sneaky our brain can be with these tricks. So it's really important when a person's trying to do something and they're getting all these detours, distractions, and hurdles coming up in their life to see it as, wow, my brain is really putting up a lot of blocks from
mm,
me to be able to do this thing
yeah.
as easily as it should be.
Yeah. I didn't realize what a trickster our brain is and
Yeah,
how manipulative it can be, but it all makes sense when you're talking through it. And to dive a little bit further into that, is the
yeah.
resistance something we're meant to fight, or is it something that we're meant to work with?
So the more we try to fight it, the stronger the resistance gets.
Mm,
Yeah, what I also say to people is resistance will fight with your efforts until the day you die. So if you have internal resistance, trying to, go up against head on, it's not going to work because it'll, whatever effort you're putting in, it'll uh, push back equally. It's kind of like Newton's, I think, second or third law of motion. For a reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When we're working with resistance, the more effort we put to go over it, resistance fight back with equal effort, which is
mm,
why we can essentially kind of burn out trying to fight with resistance. The
mm,
best thing is to understand what is causing our blocks. And as I had mentioned earlier, the brain goes through a checklist of criteria when it decides to have us do something or not do something. And sometimes we have to work through a lot of them.
mm,
Like I said, one of the criteria the brain evaluates is our self image. Is what we're trying to do in line with our self image, or will it damage or confront it? And so a person will think, okay, I got to work on my self image or deal with this. And once you do, then something else comes up, like a limiting belief, like I don't deserve to have the success. Then you'll work on pushing through the limiting belief. And
mm,
then something else comes up. And for some people, it does take a bit of time to like work through the different criteria. For other people, it's just one or two things that when they work through, they can push back the resistance.
mm,
But long, long story short, trying to push against it or fight it is one of the more challenging and effective ways to do it. And it's because, like I said, resistance will just fight back equally strong.
Yeah. So just further to go a little bit deeper in that area, when someone's feeling that internal pushback or sabotage, and you've talked about identifying it, but what are some steps that they can take to address it?
One of the easiest ways is to pay attention to the tricks, like how
Mm-hmm.
the tricks are coming up. If they find themselves constantly pushing that things off, then they know that they're in some sort of resistance. Like the brain doesn't want them to move forward, and it's using a trick of, hey, let's um, delay this until this person forgets it. If, like I said, if we're criticizing, if we're finding ourselves not being able to move forward for whatever reason, it means we're resistant. So that's the first step in identifying is looking to see if we're falling into avoidance patterns or the tricks of resistance. And then the second thing is really kind of like asking ourselves what's kind of going on, looking at our beliefs, looking at our habits, as well as some of the other things I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Though, what I find really helps is a great way to really get answers is for a person to create a self talk statement that describes a change that they want to have or have happen. So, if they are trying to, let's just say, for example, they want to diet and exercise, right? Or they want to become fit. They would create a statement or that kind of describes the change they want, like I am losing 30 pounds or I am exercising every day. As they repeat that statement, their mind is going to respond to that statement. Some of those responses will be, you can't diet, or you don't have motivation, discipline, or you can't do this. All of that is indication of your resistance.
Mm.
Yeah. So you're getting it straight
Yeah.
from the mind. And the more you repeat that statement, the more the mind is going to trigger responses and the
Mm-hmm.
more insights you're going to get as to what's going on. And sometimes you'll get memories from childhood of like somebody laughing at you. And that's kind of like a self-image
Mm.
thing that, oh, you don't have the image, you're going against your self-image. Or if you feel like a tenseness in your body, when you repeat those statements, that means you're likely working against your habits. Like your habits aren't built for it. And
Mm.
just the thought of it kind of triggers this like reaction. So that's one of the easier ways. It
Mm-hmm.
goes even deeper, which involves more deeper look into what's going on. But
Mm.
if somebody wanted something that was really quick and still gives a lot of powerful insight, this is one of them.
Yeah. So for someone out there that's realizing, listening to you now, that it might be something deeper, but they still continue to label themselves as they're lazy or they've been unmotivated for years and are still continuing that pattern, what would you say to them?
This is really awesome question because when we want to do something and we're not able to do it, the automatic response is I'm lazy, I don't have what it takes, um, I don't have motivation and all of that. And I want people to understand that it's not that. Anytime that we're not able to do something, it has nothing to do with us being lazy or that there's something wrong with us. It's actually, there's a part of our brain that's trying to stop us. And
Mm,
if we can figure out why we're being stopped and work through it, then it becomes a lot easier to move forward and do the thing. And it's
mm,
unfortunate because the natural default response for a lot of people, it is that. And that very thing starts to become a belief that reinforces our other millimeter beliefs. And
mm,
it's really important to stop that pattern and say, no, it's not about that. It's just the way that we humans are built. There's always going to be a part of us that creates challenges to moving forward.
mm.
And it has nothing to do with any inherent quality in us.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Yeah, for our viewers or our listeners to hear that.
Yeah.
So, to explain to us, how has naming and understand this helped people in real life, whether it's in their relationships, creativity, career, or health? Can you explain someone that you've seen evolve through this?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do because majority of the people who are coming to me or learning about resistance just have this inner belief that they're lazy, they're broken, they don't have what it takes, something's wrong with them. And when they can see, oh, wow, there's a part of my brain that's designed to hold me back.
Mm,
And it's doing that because there's all these criteria that it looks through. And when somebody can go through that, be like, oh, yeah, my identity is not in line. My beliefs aren't supportive of what I'm trying to do. Oh, yeah, I have this like core pain because ever since I was a child, I wanted my dad's love, but he didn't give it to me and it hurt. And now I live a hectic life living paycheck to paycheck because my brain is distracting me from this
mm,
pain. And once I can work through and resolve this pain, then it's like I can magically start doing the things that I want to do and have the success that I want. And so it's a very profound, eye-opening shift because it's very different look from a lot of personal development and self-help right now
mhm,
because a lot of it is very motivation and inspirational based. It's a lot of, hey, you could do it. You can do anything you want. Go after your dreams, go after your goals.
yeah,
And it pumps them up with almost motivation. And when they're in all those feelings, they actually, in that moment, they're like, yes, I can do it. This is going to happen.
mm,
I know it's possible. And once the feelings fade, they're right back where they started.
yeah,
And I really do believe that our current personal development is actually burning people out.
mhm,
It's giving them all this inspiration and hope. And then when they hit up against a resistance and they can't move forward, they're left struggling. Why? And I think it's doing more harm than good. But if
mm,
they can actually start to say, realize that, hey, motivation is good, and that motivation is eventually gonna lead to hitting up against this wall. Once
mm,
you do, don't feel bad. It's a normal process. We all go through it, and but work through it. And if you can, then you'll be able to see the progress that you want.
mm. So your concept's really about identifying what the resistance is and then retraining the brain, the thoughts, and being kind to yourself and having positive thoughts opposed to negative. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah. So retraining the brain can happen different ways.
Mm,
And I had mentioned self-talk is a great way to actually
mm,
figure out what our resistance is. And self-talk is actually even a great way to help retrain our brain.
mm,
So I do tell people to create a set of statements around the change that they want and affirm those statements regularly. And as they do, it'll those statements will go inside the mind, rewire the brain, help change the beliefs, help shift the self-image, work through a lot of the internal stuff. That's the easiest way to do it.
mhm,
And I have one self-talk statement that has been huge for a lot of people. It's a universal statement. And it took me nearly 15 years traveling to over 100 countries to narrow it down to this one statement. Do you think your audience would like to hear what that is?
absolutely. I'm interested to hear what it is.
Yeah. So it's I'm a do it now person. I easily do things now. I easily accomplish my goals right away. And there's a lot of psychology why I have created this statement. I'm a do it now person actually creates an identity and self image that you are a person who does things now. And that's important. Like I said, the brain evaluates whether our identity is in line with what we're trying to do. The
Mm,
second statement, I easily do things now.
mm,
It's it's possible to start doing a lot more things, but taking action can feel painful. It can feel like a lot of work and stress. But I added that I easily do things now, so it's a lot
mm,
more easy. So we do it in a lot more flow.
Mm.
And the last statement is I easily accomplish my goals right away because it's easy to do a lot of things but spin in circles. And the last phrase of the statement, I accomplish my goals right away, makes it so the brain is always focusing on an end mind, an end target, so that we're
Mm-hmm.
actually getting to a destination.
Mm.
So I'm a do it now person. I easily do things now, and I easily accomplish my goals right away. That's the first statement. The other statement that complements this is I'm deserving, have permission, and I'm having good things.
Mm.
Another reason resistance comes up is that a lot of us don't feel deserving of
Yeah.
success. We don't feel like we should have the level of success that we desire, which is fascinating because our brain is creating a desire and then
Mm.
it's creating feelings of undeserving. And our undeserving comes up for a lot of reasons. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter what that is, as long as we repeat I'm deserving, we start to change that pattern to be more undeserving.
Mm.
The other aspect is I am deserving, have permission. So, another reason resistance comes up is because since we were kids, we've been conditioned to wait for permission to do things.
Mm.
Like when we can have a toy, when we can watch television, when we can do something, we're always waiting permission. And so that's conditioned us to like always be like waiting for permission for something. So although we may want something, the brain creates resistance and stops us because we just haven't received permission. So
Mm.
this gives ourselves permission. I'm deserving, have permission. And the last part of the statement, am having good things, is in the action of like receiving the good things that we want. So if the people can take these two statements, I'm a do it now person, I easily do things now, I easily accomplish my goals right away, with I'm deserving, have permission, and I'm having good things and repeat it regularly,
Yeah.
like when they wake up in the morning, when they're cooking, cleaning, in the shower, driving, I repeat it all the
Mm.
time. The more those statements go into our unconscious, and the more we naturally just start acting out
Yeah.
and becoming more active and productive. And it's pretty powerful because you don't need to work through a lot of the resistance things I talked about. These statements just does it.
Yeah.
And the more consistent we can stay with it, the more shift it has. In fact, these statements have been one of the reasons I've been able to write over a dozen books, travel to 100 countries, and do all sorts of pretty wild activities like skydiving, snowboarding, scuba diving,
Mm-hmm.
dancing, yoga, and so much more, is because I programmed myself to create action internally versus
Yeah.
forcing myself to take action, through
Mm.
my conscious.
Yeah. The statements are truly beautiful. It's powerful, it's insightful, but it's also kind to yourself and kind
Yeah,
to your self-belief. So
yeah,
it's beautiful statements, and it becomes your mantra morning and night. So I'm sure
yeah,
a lot of our listeners will be writing that down and
yeah,
be using it as their mantra every day. So
yeah.
just on messages, what's next for you in spreading this message? Is there any new projects, books, or tools you're working on?
Well, I've written a dozen books, so I've gotten
Yeah.
to the point where I'm like beyond the books.
Yeah.
I know a lot of inspiring authors. They're like, "Wow, I want to write a book. And like, it would be great to be successful with it." I'm very fortunate that I've, I've reached that milestone in my life. And
Mm.
then the second step was I created this concept of internal resistance, and I have a course on it. And I've been teaching this for the last half decade.
Hmm.
And the next step now is I've developed a technique that can help people go into their mind and work through a lot of their challenges from their past, whether it's trauma, PTSD, bad breakup, codependency, and including resistance.
Mm.
And this is something more recent that I'm doing. It's like one-on-one work where I use this method that I've developed to take people into their unconscious and
Mm.
we do the work inside their mind. It's
Mm.
pretty wild stuff. Um, I have to say I'm not a therapist, but the best way to describe it, it's like 2 years of therapy in 2 hours.
Hmm.
So that's really what I am focused on and trying to push and bring out to the world.
Okay. That's really good to hear. I'm sure our listeners
Yeah.
will be looking you up more and trying to find where they can find you. But we'll talk
Yeah.
about that at the end. So just on your helping people and also with your own healing with internal resistance, can you share a moment with us where an internal resistance surprised you?
That showed up.
Yeah, it surprised you. Yeah, it showed up and surprised you. You didn't realize it
Okay.
was there.
I mean, I'll be honest, Nikki, I've had a lot of internal resistance in my life, and it
Yeah.
kind of always showed up, even though I feel like I have a strong knowledge of the concept of internal resistance. When I wanted to start talking about it more, whether on stage or in podcasts, it was like, oh wow. And like it really came up as, can I do it? Will people
Mm,
understand it? Is this too heavy of a topic? And so, it came up for me and I worked through it and I'm able to do it now where I can do it fairly comfortably now. Um, in my travels, internal resistance would come up every time I was gonna go to another country. It would be like, this barrier, or I don't like to use the word fear because a lot of
mm,
times people think internal resistance is fear. But what
mm,
I tell people is that fear is a manifestation of resistance. So if we're experiencing fear, is because of some criteria is not in line. So
mm.
resistance will trigger fear to keep us from doing something.
Yeah.
So fear is not the resistance itself, but is a response to resistance. And so, after having traveling to as many countries, when it's time to go to another country or city, like something would still come up. It's like, wow, I've done
Yeah.
this 50 times already. Why is this coming up? Same thing with my books. I've written a dozen books, and after the 10th book, you would think I'm solid, like I should be able to write it, publish it, and be confident. But it still comes up.
Mm,
And the reasons are different, which is why I say for a lot of people, we literally have to go through that checklist
mm.
because we may think it is one thing and we work through it. And sure, it helps us move forward, but then we
Yeah.
hit another block and then we got to work through something else. Then we move forward and then we hit another block and then we work through something else. So it's the
Mm,
human mind is so complex that, yeah.
yeah. So just on that, you were saying things can shift. What's a daily habit that helps you to reconnect to your center?
For me, the morning routine has been
Mm,
really huge for me. I think there are simple things that we can do that make the bigger things easier. And one of the simplest things a person can do is the self talk statements I gave.
yeah.
As long as they focus on that, put a lot of effort on it, and really will themselves to do it, it can make a lot of the bigger things that they're trying to do a lot easier and less overwhelming.
Mm,
And another simple thing is a morning routine because a lot of the things that we want to do, we need the energy, we need the motivation, we need the right headspace to be able to do it and to do it consistently.
hmm.
And our morning routine can provide that. So, this is where I do my affirmations, I do my exercising, I take care of my health by drinking enough water and taking my vitamins and doing all the things that I need to be able to show up on a regular basis.
Mm,
I can squeeze into a hour to hour and a half morning routine. And as long as I focus on that, then everything else becomes easier.
mm.
So that's one of my daily habits.
Yeah.
That's been like really key to me. I mean, it's what, in fact, when people ask me about my routine, what I say is, you got to protect your routine. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times we don't want to do what's not required to stick to our routine.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we stop doing it, we start falling off on the other things. And as long as a person can find the activities that'll make the rest of the day easier and put into routine and make sure that they, whatever they need to do, whatever energy they need to call up to make
Mm.
sure they do it on a consistent basis, that will be really huge for them for the other things they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, we all need to find that time for ourselves and to be kind to ourselves and give us that space. And as you said, it's about perfecting it. It's about waking up that little bit earlier to give you that time. Because as you said,
Yeah,
once you drop those things, a lot of things don't feel right in your life in that space. Now I understand where that
yeah.
comes from. That resonated with me. So, Cam, what does positive vibes mean to you?
I think positive vibes for me means like, are you doing what you enjoy doing,
Mm,
or are you doing something in avoidance to what you really want to be doing? And this circles back to internal resistance because, as I mentioned, when our brain wants to stop us from doing something, it won't tell us, but it'll use manipulative tricks. And I
mm,
kind of gave insight to some of those tricks. But another trick is that it'll have us do something else and make us think that's what we really want to do, but it's really an avoidance to what truly is fulfilling for us. And I feel like a lot of people are doing things that they think they like or enjoy, but it's really in avoidance to something else that they don't
mm,
realize that would be much more fulfilling that they truly desire. And so for me, positive vibes is like connecting to what it is that we really want to do and essentially pushing past the resistance to be able to do it.
mm. No, that's good advice there, Cam. So where
Yeah.
can people learn more about internal resistance, your work and your teachings?
Yeah. So I've got, as I mentioned, an entire course on it. It
Yeah.
goes much deeper than we possibly could in this short time. It goes into, we didn't even talk about how our wants get in our way. It talks
Ah,
about our wanting mechanism. It goes into many more criteria the brain evaluates, and it discusses dozens more tricks that our brain uses to keep us from moving forward. But more importantly, it talks about like very simple ways that we could start making progress in our lives. I gave self talk and I spent a lot of time on self talk because I think it's the simplest, most effective way. But there's other ways that a person can use to get over resistance. And they can find that at my website, kamknight.com, KAMKNIGHT.com. But I do have a really great gift for all of the listeners here. If they text the word flow, FLOW, to 26786, they can get my guide, 5 ways to end procrastination and sabotage. And it's not like a simple surface level guide. It really goes deep into the psychology of some of these tricks and
mm.
how they hold us back. And so they can get that by texting flow to 26786.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Cam. I'm sure some of our listeners will be texting that. Yeah, it's amazing how insightful you've been today to understand how the brain is so tricky and can
Yeah,
manipulate us in many different ways. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of listeners out there more intrigued to find out more.
yeah,
So thank you.
yeah.
And
You're
finally,
welcome.
Cam, what would you say to a person listening right now that knows what they want to do, but just can't take the first step?
Yeah, I think the first step is in realizing that wanting doesn't equate to having.
Mm,
Just because you want something doesn't mean you'll take the necessary steps to get it.
mm,
And if a person can understand that, they know or they will know that, hey, just because I have a want, no matter how big it is, things are going to come up that's going to prevent me from going after it. And instead of going in blindly or assuming that it's going to be easy, they actually prepare
yeah,
that, hey, roadblocks are going to come up. I might not know what they are, but they are. And if I can be aware of it, I won't be so taken aback or um, the word that I'm trying to look for is like be surprised.
Mm,
In fact, when things come up, they can expect it, and when you can expect it, you can prepare for it, and then you can move
mm,
forward. It's when we don't expect things are going to come up that they take us or derail us.
yeah.
The second thing is we've heard the quote, "You are your own worst enemy."
Mm,
Well, I think now people understand why that quote is so famous or popular or what that truly means. Because we have this thing called resistance that is
mm,
designed to stop us and it's actively working to stop us. And this is the enemy within that makes it that we are on our own worst enemy. And if we can realize that, um, we can be more prepared when we're moving forward with things.
mm. That's very insightful, Cam. So, yes, now we
Yeah.
understand the quote exactly
Yeah.
what it means. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you, Cam, for giving us a new lens to look through, one that's compassionate, insightful, and incredibly freeing. You've reminded us that we're not lazy or broken. We're just often in an invisible tug of war with a part of ourselves that's trying to keep us safe, even when we're ready to grow. So thank you,
Yeah.
Cam. Your wisdom and your insight today has been very valuable.
Thank you very much, Nikki. I'm glad that you found it insightful, and hopefully, this has been really great for your audience.
Yeah. And to our listeners, if you've been stuck, overwhelmed, or frustrated with yourself, take a deep breath. What if the resistance isn't a sign to stop, but an invitation to understand? And what if naming it is the first step to moving through it? This is Positive Vibes. Let's keep building a world where trust is sacred, process is personal, and the journey feels lighter when we walk it with awareness. Sending you all love and positive vibes. Bye for now. And thank you again, Cam. I've learned a lot today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.